What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another solo AEW pay-per-view recap. It's your boy Brandon Tanguma here with you on Under the Radar, or I don't know. We don't really have a segment for it or a title for the ones we upload on Curveballs and Chair Shots. But anyways, here we are. Yes, my name is Brandon Tanguma. We are here to recap another AEW pay-per-view. We got Forbidden Door on the docket this time, live from the O2 Arena in London, England. Announced attendance was 18,992. They flaunted this was the highest pro wrestling attendance ever in the O2. Once again, no matter what company it is, when they announce figures like that, you always got to take it with a grain of salt. Seems as though AEW is a little bit more on the up and up than what WWE announces, but yeah, I would not be shocked if they put in a couple extra bodies in there just so they could say it was the highest wrestling figure of all time in that arena. But overall, before we get into the show itself, I thought it was a solid show, a good show even, and there was no, match of the year. Oh my God, we're going to remember this, match for 5-10 years from now, like some other maybe AEW or New Japan Dream matches we could have thought of back in the day. But it is kind of indicative of where we are right now. More in New Japan. New Japan is just not in a great spot right now. The booking has been pretty bad from Gedo, and they just don't have any new stars. Most of the New Japan stars that AEW fans would want, they are on the AEW roster now at this point. You got Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Kazuchika Okada. They are all on the AEW side. Jay White's injured. Trying to think, Naito's basically kind of pseudo-retired now at this point. Yeah, so all of the marquee names that people in the in America would want have jump ship or just aren't what they used to be, like Tanahashi. But let's get into the show. I did not watch the pre-show, unfortunately, but they had 4 matches. Oof. But yeah, those matches did happen. We start off the pay-per-view pay-per-view proper, easy for me to say, with the reunion of Edge and Christian. But here, it's Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. They took on Kip Sabian and Killswitch with Mother Wayne in their corner. Nick Wayne was injured, has a foot injury. I still don't know if that's legit or not, but he was not in this match, was not there at all. This one goes 13 minutes, 45 seconds, and Copeland and Christian get the win, shockingly, by pinning Kip Sabian. Who would have seen that coming? But they told the story of Christian being reluctant, not wanting to tag in, or at least not want to wrestle in the match against Killswitch, even though, Christian made his bed and he has to kind of lay in it, but he didn't want to face the music. They also played up that, once again, Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne were yelling at Killswitch. Killswitch and Kip couldn't get on the same page exactly. So, both teams were not exactly a strong unit in there. It was solid work. It was a fun time seeing Copeland and Christian back together. Interesting dynamic between the two because they haven't had Christian turn at all. His character is pretty much the same. Maybe he doesn't go after people's dead parents anymore, or at least hasn't in quite some time. So it's I think it's a long journey till we get a full-blown Christian babyface turn, or at least a babyface type of character instead of what he is right now. But maybe they can kind of walk that line and they can kind of do something to where he is still kind of that asshole, but he's kind of a lovable asshole, and he kind of does it with a wink and a nod. He doesn't go too deep, doesn't go as harshly as he has in the past, but we'll have to wait and see. Match only went 13:45, and every AEW pay-per-view I'm going to come here and complain about how it was too long. In total, the show pay-per-view proper was 4.5 hours, which, in turn is a little bit too long. Maybe it was helped by the fact that this was a overseas show here in the United States on the West Coast. It started at 10 a.m., so the show was over by 2:30. So, it's not going deep into the hours and not nighttime. It's, you feel a little bit, you're not as tired compared to some of those AEW shows. So maybe that did play into it. But, looking at these matches, not a lot of matches outside of the last two went over 20 minutes. So there was no overly long matches, no matches that kind of overstayed their welcome. Everything was kind of a crisp, snug 15 minutes there and about. And as I get through all the matches, I want to name off all the times, and that's pretty much the case here. And I started off with Copeland and Christian getting the win here. I thought it was solid. Crowd was into it, and it was a hot start, hot crowd all the way through. They, European crowd, we're going to be comparing and contrasting probably between this one and WWE, since both companies are overseas at the moment. And I thought this was a solid crowd, as most European crowds always are. I did like they didn't get too self-indulgent and kind of chants to kind of get themselves over. They, kind of stayed between the lines and kind of, stayed and chanted for, the faces. They chanted, towards fans, and not just kind of chanted random things to kind of get themselves over, which I think sometimes the Europeans tend to do. And we saw that a little bit on the Raw in Birmingham this past Monday. Then we move on to the TNT title match with Kyle Fletcher defending against Hiromu Takahashi. This one went 14-40, and I really did enjoy this match. I think this is probably my second favorite match of the night. Yeah, the finish was never in doubt. We all knew Kyle Fletcher was going to get the win, but I thought they just worked well together. It was a good match between the two. They worked hard. Some crisp, clean, hard-hitting moves in this one. And it was just a straightforward, good, solid match that you probably would see in either AEW or New Japan. And Fletcher won, hitting his finisher to get the pinfall. So, not too much. It's kind of going to be the same for a lot of these matches. It's like everything was just good. Storyline-wise, there's nothing too much to kind of glean from it, especially with this match, because this is one of the true forbidden door matches of an AEW guy strictly taking on a New Japan guy. But I thought it was a good match. Then we move over to the TBS Championship, where we get Mercedes Moné defending her title, one of her 9 titles, which, yes, she got another one while in Europe. She defended against Alex Windsor, Bozilla, and Persephone. Once again, I should have done this after the pay-per-view, because I kind of forgot how she says her name. But anyways, this one went 15-30. Mercedes Moné retains with a roll-up. Kind of a cheap finish, but to be kind of expected with all these people in the match. I think the real standout, the real story of this match was Bozilla. She is from Stardom. She's only been wrestling for about 3 years, and she looked really impressive in this match. Hard hitting, was able to get herself over. Mercedes Moné is kind of the perfect companion for that type of character, because she can just kind of fly around and bounce all over the place forward and make Bozilla look good. And I thought that was definitely the highlight and the takeaway point of this entire match. Now, yeah, the work in there was good. There's a little bit of some sloppiness involved, but it's going to be the case, especially with 4 people involved, and they try to do some overcomplicated things in there. But yeah, it was fine for what it was. Definitely not one of Mercedes' best TBS title matches, but it's going to be tough in a 4-way spot to tell a cohesive story that kind of can culminate in the finish. And it wasn't built for that anyways, because she wanted the roll up. Then we had Zack Sabre Jr. defending his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness had Daniel Garcia at ringside. Fun time with these two English legends here wrestling in London. Nigel came out to Oasis, as he should always, but those money, the rights fees for that's probably a little too rich even for a billionaire. So Nigel comes out, they just go out there, they grapple for 17 minutes, have a good, crisp, tactical match that you would expect from both these guys. And the crowd was not into it as much as maybe you would expect, especially for 2 guys from Britain. But these matches can be a little tough to kind of get into, because it's going to be a lot of groundwork and kind of trading holds and submissions that you kind of know aren't going to be the finish. But I thought that they meshed well together. They did good work, and with Nigel at his age, with his injury history. You don't want to take too many risks, and I think Zack Sabre Jr. is the perfect opponent for him because he doesn't have to take anything crazy. He's not going to be taking hard hits to the head. He's not going to be taking any, pile drive. I mean, I think he did take a pile driver in this match, or at least Nigel gave one to Zach, but nothing too dangerous for Nigel, especially with the height difference between Zach and Nigel. Zach was going to kind of rely more on that twisting it up in pretzels, and they didn't do anything too stupid, because I think sometimes Zach can get into the like those octopus holds, or this isn't him, but this is more of a oh god, I got this. Sonata does his like octopus or whatever hold where he like ties them up in knots, and then the wrestler just can't move, when clearly if you just move your arm a little bit, you won't be stuck in that position. But anyways, just one of those nitpicky things that I hate about wrestling sometimes. But so Zach wins, gets the win via pinfall. Daniel Garcia tried to help Nigel a little bit, pushing the ropes to help him get to them when he was in a submission. Garcia, they kind of lingered on him a little bit, but at the end, McGinnis and Garcia embraced, they hugged, and you thought maybe we'd get a swerve here, bro, and have Daniel Garcia turn on Nigel, but that did not happen. I still think at the end of the day that's going to happen. Maybe we get that on Collision sooner rather than later, and then they build this to the All Out show in Toronto in late September. So maybe they pull the trigger there, but I think this definitely is leading towards a Daniel Garcia heel turn against Nigel McGuinness. Then, somewhere scattered in there, we did have a moment with, I probably should have, because I'm looking off Wikipedia, but Wikipedia's not going to show this, so now I got to go back to the... look at that. It was a perfect spot. It's like I almost knew this is when it happened. So yeah. So Shivani announced that the sellout crowd of 18,992. Then, Queen Amanada and Tekla were brawling backstage, kind of like Peter Griffin and the Chicken. Julia Hart and Sky Blue then go and attack Queen Amanada, because they got their little threesome over there. And then we got the returning of Jamie Hayter to make the save, so she got a big pop, another Brit Res person in there, so she makes the save for Queen Amanada and staves off the three heels. So maybe Jamie and Amanada are going to get another friend, and we have a 6-woman tag match, or some sort of six person extravaganza to take place soon. But Tekla debuted by attacking Jamie, so now Hayter is finally back. Don't really know what took her so long, if she was injured or something may have happened, or if she had visa issues. I don't know. But yeah, so Jamie Hayter came back, which was a good moment for her. Hopefully she can stay on TV and they can do something with her. Then we got the 3-way tag match for the AEW tag team titles. The Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, defending their titles against FTR and Brodido. This one goes 15 minutes and 30 seconds. At first, Excalibur said that there was no tag, so he said it was tornado rules, but it actually wasn't. It was the dumb thing that every company seems to do, where they have 3 teams in there, or multiple teams in there, or I guess many teams, because multiple can be 2s. But anyways, but yeah, so they have 2 people in the ring at all times, despite having 3 teams. So you have to do kind of that awkward, how does the team that's not in the match get tagged into the match? And they did that a few times. I think that's stupid as well. So, just solid stuff for the most part. And then 3 guys in masks come out and they attack the Hurt Syndicate. And it ended up being Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. So I don't know why they were doing that. They brought up the fact that MJF was with those guys last week on Dynamite, so possibly MJF sent a hit on the Hurt Business. Spoiler alert, the Hurt Business had nothing to do with the MJF Adam Page match, so this wasn't like, eye for an eye type thing. Just Hurt Syndicate they brawl to the back with those 3 guys, and so they're out of the match. So then it's just down to FTR and Brodido. They wrestle only for a couple minutes, just them two, which I was a little bit disappointed with. I wish they kind of went back and forth for more and just kind of had like a good solid, maybe like 6 to 7 minute tag team match of just those two teams kind of in this 3-way match. And then Brodido does their little flippy-do finisher where Brody King lays on his back and then kind of catapults Brodido into a 450. And Brodido kind of he didn't land properly. He was kind of short, so then he kind of like had to reach over to cover on Dax, I think it was. Yeah. Covered Dax. Then he came off of Dax, and while this is all happening, Cash is trying to make the fake save, even though it's the finish. So Brodido, I keep wanting to say Brodido when I mean to just say Brodido, he covers him. The referee counts like 1, 2. Brodido gets off of him for some reason, and the referee stops his count, and then he counts it again. So Brodido had like a 5 count, and like I said, Cash has to like kind of fake go in there to try to make the save. So unfortunately, the finish was botched, which did, I think, take the air out of the crowd because they are reacting to the botch, and then that was the actual finish, so the crowd wasn't able to kind of like pop for being the end. But yeah, so Brodido get the win, and they are the new tag title champions. I would suspect this was not the plan going into the tag tournament before the fact, but just Brodido got really hot, and props to Tony Khan and the booking team for kind of realizing that and going with them. Now, on the negative side, Hurt Syndicate, what the fuck? Like, you guys can't do a job. You guys can't even be in the match, like in the venue when the finish takes place. And, there was reports coming out earlier that the Hurt Syndicate refused to job to FTR. They didn't want to lose to them. And so maybe that's kind of why this turned into a 3-way match. I mean, if they do not want to do business and they are refusing to lose, like, just cut them. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Bobby Lashley, Sean Benjamin, and MVP are not worth the headache. Like, I think there's something you can do with Bobby Lashley, but he's in his mid to late 40s now. Sean Benjamin's the same way. He's been a WWE jobber for how many years now? And MVP is a manager who I think, has his moments, but I think he's also showcased some bad moments and some bad instincts on the mic as well, kind of going after the talent on screen in terms of it being for heat, quote unquote, or trying to get themselves over. So, like, if this was it's just what it's screamed like, okay, we're going to lose the titles, but we don't want to lose. So we're not, we're going to conjure up this finish for that to happen. And so it was just bad all the way around. And just like, come on, like, it was so lame. Like, it's this whole Hurt Syndicate thing. They had the thing with MJF, and now that thing seemingly has just gone poof. Like, no real, storyline reason or no, MJF was with the Hurt Syndicate for like 2-3 weeks, and they just cut bait with them, and then now that's it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens, because Tony Khan has the history of, kind of not being that ruler with the iron fist that I think he should be at times. He's like too much of a nice guy when he needs to kind of, lay his foot down and be like, look, guys, you got to do this. I'm the owner. I'm the booker. I told you to do this. You got to do it. All right. But we'll have to wait and see what comes of the Hurt Syndicate later on down the road. Then we get the Unified Championship between Kazuchika Okada and Swerve Strickland. This one goes 16-30. Swerve selling the knee for a long time. Reports came out that he's been wrestling with like a torn, messed up knee for years now. And so they kind of played into it without kind of going too much into it. They just kind of alluded to him having a knee injury going into it. And Okada went after that. Swerve kind of staved him, was valiantly trying to stave off Okada. Just once again, a solid match back and forth. Could have been a Forbidden Door match a couple years ago, but now these are just two AEW guys going at it. And at the end of the day, Okada just hits one Rainmaker, pins Swerve, and that was that. Good match between two top stars. This wasn't legendary GOAT Okada. I don't know if we're ever going to see that, but this was, if we're going to go on a 1 to 10 scale of Okada-ness, I'd say this is probably like a 7 or an 8, maybe. maybe 7. It was not an 8. But yeah, so, Okada was good. Swerve here was good for what he could do. I don't know to what extent he really is, injured or how much he is limited at this point. But then after the fact, Okada goes and attacks Swerve's knee. So either writing him off or, playing it up even more. I would assume maybe it writes off Swerve for a little bit and he can either go get surgery or go, rehab it and he can go get better. And we also had the return of Wardlow. So Wardlow comes out. Well, Nana comes out, tries to stave off Okada and Don Callis with a pipe. Then Wardlow comes out, and Wardlow goes, and he doesn't really do anything, I think, because he goes after security guards because security guards try to stop him or something. And then let's see if I can get the whole thing. So yeah, Wardlow, Okada yanked Swerve's leg and jammed it in between the ring post and the ring steps. He smashed it against a chair. Nana ran out with a pipe. Okada and Callis backed off. Then Excalibur said the damage had been done. So when Nana is checking on Swerve, Wardlow made his return. And he pounded. Wardlow attacked Nana, but he didn't actually go after Swerve at all. So then we get Wardlow cementing that he is with the Don Callis family. So he, shakes, embraces Don Callis and Okada. Everybody else comes out. Kyle Fletcher comes out with his title, and then we get the entrance of, by himself, the G1 Climax winner, Konosuke Takeshita. He gets a good pop, and he goes up, looks at Wardlow. Kind of hard to exactly read what Takeshita's thinking, but they definitely put him in that babyface spot, and you could tell that it might not happen soon. It might not happen within the next calendar year, but I think they are lining the cards up for Takeshita to be the one to eventually break away from the Don Callis family and be a babyface, and I think that is a phenomenal choice. If you wanted to, you could have done it with him. You could have done it with Okada. Maybe Kyle Fletcher, but I think at this point, from what I've seen, I think Kyle Fletcher is doing a really good job as a heel, and I think you can kind of keep him there because I think having a true heel in wrestling, especially with the AEW crowd, is kind of tough. So I think keeping Kyle Fletcher in that realm, he's a really good wrestler as well, so I think he's in a perfect spot to climb up the card as a heel. But Okada, as I said, he's not the guy he used to be, but Takeshita is still in his physical prime. If AEW is not going to do anything with him, I really want New Japan to do something with him. They gave him the G1 win. We'll see where that goes from there, but it does seem as though maybe AEW is putting the cards in place for Takeshita to do something in terms of breaking up with the Don Callis family, so I'm excited to see that. Then we get the AEW Women's Championship with Timeless Toni Storm defending against Athena. This one goes 15-15, and Toni Storm gets the win via submission. Another solid match between the two. Billy Starks was at ringside. She gets involved a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Just a straightforward match between these two women. Athena got the upper hand a little bit with the distraction from Starks, but Toni was able to make the comeback. Billy Starks gets chased off by Mina Shirakawa, so even the odds there, and Storm ends up putting the chicken wing submission, crossface chicken wing onto Athena to get the tap out win. So once again, Athena comes up to AEW, longest reigning ROH champion ever, and then she just ends up losing. So we've seen it with Toni Storm, and we saw it with Mercedes Moné. The only time Athena, and I call her the underrated Athena. It's not just a bit. I do think that she is super talented, and she could be used more on the AEW roster instead of just kind of toiling away and doing good stuff on ROH, but just not being seen by anywhere near the percentage of people that she should be being. Whatever, you know what I'm saying. She is underutilized and underrated down there at ROH. Then the real main event, because lights out and whatever the gimmick is, but yeah. So the penultimate match on the show: Hangman Adam Page defending as AEW Championship against MJF via pinfall. And they had the stipulation that the title can change hands either by countout or disqualification. So that was that. And the match went 31-40. I would say the first 25 minutes were really good, solid. On the verge to be maybe not something special, but something that was definitely on the verge of being the best match of the show. But then I thought they got a little too cute, and the finish was way too overbooked and way too contrived. So we get a ref bump. Bryce Remsburg was the referee for this one. MJF. What was it like? Basically, cheats to win. Page gets pinned. MJF. Hold on. Timeout. Rewind. Back it up. MJF pins Page. The referee gets up, counts 1, 2, 3. Page's foot is clearly on the rope. So we're like, okay, is MJF going to win the title? Is Adam Page going to get screwed out of it? But there was a clear 1, 2, 3 count. Then Bryce Remsburg just goes cold. He's knocked out again, even though he counted the 3. No ring, no motion to ring the bell, no bell ring from the timekeeper. Then Mark Briscoe comes out. He tries to do like the Bret Hart at Starrcade 97 bit, but he doesn't even get to the ring. He gets stopped by security, and then he just goes back to the back. So for the first time ever in wrestling history, the security actually does their job, I suppose. And then after the fact, the ref gets up, or MJF goes to take the leg off Hangman's leg off the rope. Then the referee came alive and said that because he saw MJF take the foot off the rope, the foot's been on that rope for like 5 minutes now at this point, a little bit over and over, little whatever the fuck. I can't speak right now, but because he saw that a couple minutes later, that just completely overturns. Fuck, I cannot talk at the moment. I don't know what the hell's going on with me. I did not have my energy drink. Maybe that's why. That just completely invalidates the decision that was not a decision yet. I don't know. So Hangman then recovers, clotheslines MJF, went for the buckshot. MJF ducks, landed a low blow, rolled up Hangman for a near fall. MJF was dismayed. Fans chanted cowboy shit. The ref checked on Hangman as he held his crotch. MJF snuck the ring into the steel clipboard. He bashed Hangman with it, and the ref was distracted. Hangman kicked out, though, for a good near fall. Then MJF put the Dynamite Diamond Rig on, blocked him from, and the referee blocked it from and scolded him. Then Hangman bashed MJF with the clipboard, delivered the Deadeye center ring, and followed up with a buckshot for the win. So, still a good match, but I thought the overbookedness of it kind of took it a step down for me on this one. Also, the fact that this wasn't a true cash-in from MJF, that he still has that contract, did kind of lead you to believe that he was not going to win, because what happens if MJF did win? He's just going to have a title shot and a championship at the same time. Yeah, that one didn't make too much sense. AEW advertised that they are going to go to Cardiff, Wales, December 13th, and then AEW Dynamite in Manchester, England, in December 17th. So AEW returning to the UK in a relatively near future. Then we get into the main event. They went to the commentators at ringside. Bryan Danielson said that he had to excuse himself from the main event just because of everything that went down. He says he can't be unbiased. He can't control himself. So he just said, out of respect and out of the safety for everything involved, I'm just going to leave. Shout out Bryan Danielson. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I thought he was a really good commentator for this show and Dynamite as well. I thought, he's a smart guy. He knows what to play up. He knows the stories. He knows, the moves. So I just thought all the way around, he was a very good replacement for Taz, who was unable to make the trip because he just had knee surgery. So understandably so, he did not want to put his body at that type of stress for the week. So shout out Taz and shout out Bryan Danielson, who I thought he was a fantastic commentator. Maybe not fantastic, a really good commentator. Maybe if he wants to hang up those boots forever and does want to travel and does some stuff with AEW, I think Bryan Danielson would be a really good commentator. Maybe as a bit, he would replace Nigel McGuinness one day, and the rivalry will continue between those two and forever. There was some solid lines from Danielson when he was commentating the Nigel McGuinness matches, kind of getting some zingers in and just continuing the bit and the rivalry between those two guys. So, main event, lights out steel cage match. We got the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Will Ospreay taking on Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. From a logistical standpoint, I was wondering exactly how they were going to do this cage, and they had the ring, and they had a kind of a Hell in a Cell type width of the cage, so the cage extended out to the outside of the ring, but the cage was not exactly that tall. I would say maybe it was like 15 feet. I don't know how tall it was. They didn't give us an exact number, but it wasn't like a super tall cage like you would see at in a Hell in a Cell. So, but that being said, I thought visually it looked good. Entrances, we had, this definitely was like the, Will Ospreay match. Going into it, they kind of said, they told a different story, I thought, in this match than they were telling leading into it. Like, I think, because they made it seem like, oh yeah, Ospreay has a bad neck, but he's still going to, go and, wrestle this match, and he's going to, do his thing. And like, okay, like, I don't think that's smart, but he's going to do it, I guess. But the story of this one did kind of feel like a Will Ospreay swan song moment, and I think they could have told the story differently and better if they made it seem like Will knows he has this neck issue. He knows he's going to be gone for a while, but he hates the Death Rider so much. He knows what this means to the company, that he's going to put his body on the line for this one match. And once he's done with that one match, he's going to go away for a long time to get his neck right. And I think they could have told that story and it would have had a much more emotional resonancy, much more relatability. But, we'll get into everything that happened after the fact, but So Will Ospreay had a video narrated by his partner Alex Windsor, and just talked about how much he means to her family, the fans, and all that other good fun stuff. So that was a good moment from him. Will Ospreay gets the last entrance of the baby faces, so he was able to soak in the adulation from the crowd. So a really good moment from them. The Young Bucks come out, and they. Big pop, big moment, funny moment. I wish maybe Excalibur wasn't talking as much so we can actually hear the song, but they come out to Hanson's Mbop, which was their song that they would come out during the PWG era, so their very early years of the Young Bucks, they come up to that song, so that was a good time there. And then the Death Riders and Gabe Kidd come out, so this one goes 32 minutes, 30 seconds. Exactly what you'd expect from this. Nothing too gruesome, nothing too stupid. In this style of match. I mean, obviously the Darby Allin is in it, so there's going to be some stuff in there. But outside of the fork in the ear hole of Darby Allin, and then Darby and Gabe Kidd jumping off the top of the cage through a pyramid of tables, which for some odd reason, Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta set up on the outside of the cage. Like, like in a meta sense that is set up for a spot, but it's like, what the hell? Why would Shafir and Yuta do that? Like, what is the purpose? What is the utility of building, the double-decker table spot? I don't know. Young Bucks demanded that the production staff, this was on the pre-show, I didn't watch it, but I did see a clip of this, but the Young Bucks demanded that they, from production, that they get some dangerous weapons put underneath the ring, so they grabbed a bag and they dumped it out, and it was gummy bears. So once again, the Young Bucks get played. They sold it well. Blah, blah, blah. What else? Tanahashi went to go climb the ladder, and despite everybody, putting their bodies on the line, everyone, well, not everyone, but the baby faces at least, told Tanahashi, no, get down, don't hurt yourself, just get off the ladder. And Tanahashi was angry, and I thought that was a fun little spot there as well. Claudio press slammed Darby Allin over the top rope, high onto the cage, and he landed pretty gnarly on that. yeah, just, some wrestling, a lot of, wrestling on the outside, especially from Tanahashi, because, Tanahashi didn't really do too much in this match, but he would kind of like do his spot, and then you would just see him kind of just on a knee on the outside, kind of almost like what the young boys would, like the young lions would do, on the outside of a New Japan match, just kind of like on his knees with his arm on the side of the mat and just kind of looking at what's going on in the ring. End of the day, end of the match, I think it was Matt Jackson. Yeah, Matt Jackson got a hidden blade one-wing angel combo, and then Hiroshi Tanahashi gets up to the top rope, hits the high fly flow for the win. So Tanahashi, out of everybody, gets the pinfall win. I thought that was a good moment. Tanahashi, it's his last ride. He's going to be retiring at Wrestle Kingdom in 2026, so he's coming down to the end of the road, and this might be like this probably is his last match in AEW, and one of the last, it's not in America, but, America-esque type of match for Tanahashi. So I thought that was a good moment from him, and everyone was happy. Ospreay was able to wave with the crowd. They kind of gave him his moment where Ospreay was alone in the cage, and the babyface are on the outside. Then Death Riders come in, lock the cage. The babyfaces can't get in. Despite the cage not being that tall, as I said, they could have clearly climbed over the cage and kind of got in there. Did not do that, but, I digress. So the Death Riders just go after Ospreay, attack him, go after his neck. I think they Pillmanize his neck. I don't know. I forget the exact stuff. But they, went after him heavy. They went after his neck to kind of write him off for the foreseeable future. And then finally, the Ops come out. They're able to raise the cage. Everyone, the heels scurry off, and the baby faces finally are able to make their way in there. And they go off the air with the medical staff treating to Will Ospreay. So clearly a way to write Will Ospreay off for the foreseeable future. I thought it was a good angle, technically speaking, from the heels here. But once again, this is in 1984 where the heels are going to get legitimate heat for attacking Will Ospreay like that. It's just people are going to see the fact of what it is. Of Ospreay has his neck issue. He's going to be gone for a while, so this was just a way to write him off. Now, like I was saying, if they just told a story of Ospreay basically saying this is going to be his last match for like a year, even if it's not going to be that long, but just telling the story going into it that this is Will Ospreay's like last ride, and they're able to get the win, and he rides off into the sunset, and like everyone's, kind of emotional, be like, oh, we're not going to see Will Ospreay for so long, such a valiant guy, such a valiant man, whatever. When he goes away, it's pretty much the same thing in terms of like how the crowd feels, because the crowd, maybe they'll pay lip service to it, and they'll like boo the Death Riders, and they'll like flip them off and stuff like that. But for the most part, everyone kind of sees it for what it is. So I think being able to tell a more realistic story, and legitimately a real story of Will Ospreay, I think would have been better. But for what they did, I thought it was good. But like I said, I think it could have been much better if they just told the happy ending of Will Ospreay and able to just kind of go off on his own terms. But overall, I thought the match was really good. Probably the best match of the show, my favorite match of the show. And overall, show was a good one. Not the best AEW show by any means, but for what they had on there, nothing was bad outside of the Hurt Syndicate refusing to do a job, or at least being in the match to do the job. I thought everything definitely delivered. Now over here we do the grades for the shows. So I'm going to give Forbidden Door a solid B+. I thought everything, like I said, everything delivered. Everything was good. Not the highest of highs, but definitely not lowest of lows like we've seen in some other stuff, where, especially like an All In, where there was some matches on there where the crowd was not reacting in that match and not need to be on the card. Now, you could have chopped some matches off of this Forbidden Door card, but I thought everything kind of delivered. Everything kind of deserved to be where it was. That being said, thank you guys very much for tuning in. I keep telling myself I don't have much to say, so I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. And here we are at the 40-minute mark, but, that's what I do. I blabber on forever, and at points I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just making up words that don't even make sense. But thank you guys very much for tuning in to this one. We will have new episodes of the Bulletcast and Curveballs and Chair Shots coming up this week, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on the social medias. Love you all. Big hugs, tiny kisses, goodbye, good night, and bye-bye.